Welcome to Chasing Curiosity TV. Subscribe and press the bell icon for more updates. The South China Sea is on edge. What appears at first glance to be a vast expanse of tranquil blue water is, in reality, a simmering cauldron of tension and uncertainty. At the heart of this crisis lies a tiny, uninhabited ring of reefs, Scarborough Shoal. Though it may seem insignificant, this remote outcrop has become the epicenter of a major diplomatic storm. China has just declared a new national nature reserve at Scarborough Shoal, a move that has sparked outrage and deep concern from the Philippines, who see this as a direct threat to their sovereignty. The United States, recognizing the gravity of the situation, has stepped in to back its oldest Asian ally, reaffirming its commitment to the Philippines and the region's stability. This standoff isn't just about rocks, reefs, or fishing rights. It's about sovereignty, the interpretation of international law, and the future of maritime order in one of the world's most strategic waterways. China frames its announcement as a step toward environmental protection, but in Manila, it's seen as a creeping annexation. A slow but steady attempt to change facts on the ground, or rather, in the sea. The Philippines has called the move illegal, a violation of their sovereign rights and a direct challenge to the international rule of law. Protests erupt in Manila as citizens demand action and accountability. The U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty now looms larger than ever. An armed attack on Philippine forces or vessels in this area could trigger a U.S. military response, raising the stakes to unprecedented levels. Suddenly, this remote shoal, barely visible on most maps, has become a potential flashpoint for global conflict, drawing in major powers and raising fears of escalation. Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia vessels now swarm the area, blocking Filipino fishermen from their traditional waters, asserting control with an intimidating show of force. The Philippine Coast Guard, often outnumbered and outgunned, tries to hold the line, patrolling, protecting, and refusing to back down despite overwhelming odds. With American support now more explicit than ever before, the stakes have never been higher. Joint patrols and military exercises send a clear message: the world is watching. Every move in these contested waters is scrutinized by journalists, analysts, and governments worldwide. Every word from officials is weighed for its potential to either escalate or calm the crisis. This is high-stakes geopolitics unfolding in real time, a dangerous game where miscalculation could have dire consequences for the entire region. The world watches as history, law, and military power collide. The tension is palpable and the outcome remains uncertain. Beneath the tranquil surface of the South China Sea, dangerous currents swirl, currents of ambition, rivalry, and unresolved history. Scarborough Shoal has become a symbol of both resistance and risk, a place where the hopes and fears of a nation converge. The Philippines stands firm, determined to defend its rights and its people. But the balance of power is delicate, and the situation could tip at any moment. The next move, by any side, could shape the region's security and stability for decades to come, setting precedents that will echo far beyond these waters. The world holds its breath, watching as events unfold in real time, knowing that the consequences could be felt around the globe. The South China Sea has never felt smaller or more dangerous. Every decision, every maneuver, carries enormous weight. The showdown has only just begun, and the world waits to see what happens next in this high-stakes maritime drama. At the heart of the crisis is a triangular chain of reefs, known as Panatag Shoal to Filipinos, Huangyan Island to the Chinese. For generations, Filipino fishermen have relied on these waters, just 124 nautical miles from their coast. China claims ancient sovereignty, citing old maps and historical narratives. For Beijing, the shoal is a non-negotiable part of its territory. For Manila, it's a matter of economic survival and national pride, lying well within its exclusive economic zone. Control means access to rich fishing grounds and potential resources. For China, it's a strategic outpost, completing a triangle of dominance in the South China Sea. The battle of names reflects a deeper clash of worldviews, international law versus historical rights. The Philippines points to UNCLOS and geography. China leans on centuries-old claims. This fundamental disagreement makes the dispute nearly impossible to resolve. The shoal may be small, but the stakes are enormous. It's a flashpoint where history, law, and power collide. China's recent declaration of a national nature reserve at Scarborough Shoal has been presented to the world as a noble act of environmental stewardship. This move, according to Beijing, is aimed at preserving the delicate marine ecosystems and ensuring the protection of biodiversity in the region. However, Manila perceives this declaration quite differently. To them, It appears to be a thinly veiled power grab, an attempt by China to cement its control over the contested waters under the guise of conservation efforts. The Philippines views this as a strategic maneuver to assert dominance. By treating the area as a Chinese-administered reserve, Beijing is effectively asserting its sovereignty without the need for military confrontation. This move allows China to strengthen its presence and influence in the region subtly yet effectively. The Philippines has condemned this move, labeling it a violation of their sovereign rights and a breach of international law. They argue that such actions undermine the legal frameworks established to maintain peace and order in the South China Sea. Critics are quick to point out the irony in China's actions. The very activities that China has engaged in, such as clam harvesting and island building, have caused significant damage to the reefs they now claim to protect. This raises questions about the true intentions behind the nature reserve. The announcement of the nature reserve is seen as a strategic escalation, forcing Manila into a difficult position. They must choose between accepting Chinese control or appearing to oppose environmental protection, a dilemma that complicates diplomatic relations. It's a clever gambit by China, but the Philippines' swift and firm rejection signals that they are not easily fooled. They remain steadfast in their stance, refusing to yield to what they perceive as an encroachment on their sovereignty. The international community is watching closely, seeing through the green rhetoric. Many world leaders are concerned about the implications of this move on regional stability and the precedent it sets for future territorial disputes. In this context, environmentalism appears to be a convenient cover for territorial expansion. The strategic use of conservation as a tool for asserting control is a tactic that has not gone unnoticed. The stakes in this dispute are not just legal, they're ecological and existential. The health of the marine ecosystems and the livelihoods of local communities are at risk, making the situation even more critical. Scarborough Shoal has become a test of resolve, not just for Manila, but for the entire region. It is a symbol of the broader struggle for control and influence in the South China Sea. The contest for control is far from over. As tensions continue to simmer, the world watches, waiting to see how this complex geopolitical chess game will unfold. The Philippines responded with a sharp diplomatic protest, calling China's move a violation of international law. Manila's case is clear. Scarborough Shoal lies just over 120 nautical miles from Luzon, well within its exclusive economic zone under UNCLOS. Filipino fishermen have used these waters for centuries, making the dispute deeply personal. The government vows to defend its rights through all diplomatic channels, framing the issue as a defense of the rules-based order. The protest is more than symbolic. It's a stand for sovereignty and international law. The world is watching Manila's next move. In 2016, an international tribunal ruled in favor of the Philippines, invalidating China's sweeping claims in the South China Sea. The court found China's 9-dash line had no basis in law and affirmed Filipino rights at Scarborough Shoal. China rejected the ruling outright, calling it a sham and refusing to comply. Since then, Beijing has doubled down, building islands, deploying ships, and blocking Filipino access. Every Chinese vessel that blocks a Filipino boat is a defiance of international law. For Manila and its allies, the 2016 award is the final word. China's refusal to abide by it is a direct challenge to the global rules-based order. The nature reserve is just the latest move to sideline the tribunal's decision. The legal battle continues, but the reality on the water is shaped by power. The world wonders if law or force will prevail. The U.S. responded swiftly, backing the Philippines in the wake of rising tensions in the South China Sea. American officials made it clear that they stood firmly with their longtime ally, signaling a renewed commitment to regional security. The U.S. called on China to respect the 2016 International Tribunal ruling, which invalidated many of Beijing's sweeping maritime claims. This public stance put Washington at odds with Beijing, but also reassured smaller nations in the region. The U.S.-Philippines Mutual Defense Treaty now takes center stage. An attack on Philippine forces could trigger American intervention. This decades-old agreement, once seen as symbolic, is now a real deterrent in a volatile region. Joint military exercises have ramped up, with both nations training side by side in increasingly complex scenarios. These drills send a message of unity and readiness. U.S. forces have expanded their presence in the Philippines, rotating troops, aircraft and ships through key bases. This visible show of support is meant to reassure allies and deter potential aggression. This isn't just about alliance, it's about demonstrating resolve and shared interests in the face of growing uncertainty. It's also about upholding international law, ensuring that rules and agreements are respected by all parties, no matter how powerful. The US frames its support as defending the rules-based order, not just taking sides in a regional dispute. American diplomats emphasize the importance of stability and fairness for all nations. Freedom of navigation operations challenge China's claims, as US warships sail through contested waters to assert international rights. These actions signal that the world won't accept unilateral control over vital sea lanes, which are crucial for global trade and security. The Scarborough Shoal dispute is now a test case for global maritime order, watched closely by countries far beyond Asia. Washington's stance gives Manila confidence, but also raises the stakes, as both sides prepare for any possible confrontation. The US presence is a powerful deterrent, projecting strength and signaling that aggression will not go unanswered. But it also risks escalation, as any miscalculation could quickly spiral into a larger conflict involving multiple nations. The world's eyes are on this alliance. The message is clear: global stability depends on upholding agreements and deterring unilateral actions. The South China Sea is not China's alone. It is a crossroads for international commerce, energy, and security. The US is deeply invested in the region's future, working with partners to promote peace, prosperity, and a balance of power. The next move could redefine the balance of power in Asia, shaping the destiny of nations for years to come. Beneath the surface, an environmental disaster is unfolding. Chinese clam harvesting and island building have devastated coral reefs at Scarborough Shoal and beyond. Underwater footage shows once vibrant ecosystems reduced to rubble. The destruction threatens fish stocks and the livelihoods of millions. China's conservation claims ring hollow against this backdrop of damage. For the Philippines, protecting these waters is a fight for heritage and survival. The battle is not just for territory but for the ocean's future. At sea, the standoff is relentless. Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia block Filipino boats, using water cannons and dangerous maneuvers. These gray zone tactics intimidate without open conflict, but the risk of escalation is real. Filipino fishermen face daily harassment, their livelihoods under threat. Maritime militia swarm the area, asserting constant Chinese presence. Each encounter is a test of resolve and restraint. The human cost is mounting. The struggle for Scarborough Shoal is a daily battle for survival. The South China Sea is a global crossroads. 1/3 of world shipping passes through these waters. Instability here could disrupt the global economy. Freedom of navigation is at stake, as is the credibility of international law. The Scarborough Shoal dispute is a test of whether rules or force will shape the future. The US and its allies see this as a fight for the rules-based order. China's defiance threatens to set a dangerous precedent. The outcome will echo far beyond Asia. The world is watching to see if diplomacy and law can prevail. The fate of a small shoal could tip the balance of global power. The stakes have never been higher.